Doc Lee, I don't know how many, Doc Lee was here forever. He was an interesting guy. He lived here. He had been at one, before there was a policeman here, he was elected to be like the sheriff, the policeman, whatever. And so, here's the story. There was a woman who was drunk and disorderly in one of the hotels. And so, he arrested her. He would call the women, little lady. Come on, little lady. Come on, little lady. He always dressed, that's the way he looked. So she was fighting and kicking him, so he's fine. So he handcuffed her. She was naked. He brought her down from the hotel naked. Handcuffed her to the steering wheel of his car, and he went into the bar and had a couple of drinks. And when he came out, the little lady was all settled down. That's how he. Now his face looked like a road map because he had been, as he said by his own admission, he had been put away drunk more times than he could remember. He was quite the character. He ended up, I painted signs, and he would paint the backgrounds. He would paint buildings and stuff like that with one of his co-hosts. In a way, he was bigger than life. And so this lady, she bought the painting, and that's her standing next to it. Everybody called him Doc Lee. They called him Doc Lee because he was so good with animals, especially horses. His real name, I found out when he died. I did his funeral. His real name was Gtrand Lake. Can you imagine that? Kind of an amalgamation of the two warriors of the Civil War. Gtrand Lake. And he bequeathed one of his cowboy hats to me. I painted a lot of horses because I've hung out with a lot of people who have horses and are cowboys and stuff like that. This is just, I was down in Mexico and I saw, it's not a very good photograph of it, but I saw these two mules that were tied up to the beer joint, and I thought that was good, and so I took a little black and white snapshot of it and went home and painted it on later on. This is from the top of my studio. I took this last week. My studio, painting is so messy, I don't paint it in my home. So I bought a studio in downtown Denver. I own the 17th floor of a 17-story high building. It's an apartment building in Denver. And so that's out on the roof. And right now I've been painting a series of aspens because I've discovered aspens sell really well. There's aspens in these pictures. And it's not easy because there's all those little black spots on all of them. So these are different aspens in different stages because I'll work on one and then I'll set it in the window for the paint to dry, oil paint, and just pick up the next one because I've already got all the paints that I need. And the idea is that you can see this is probably the most finished one, and this one is 6 feet tall, so they're kind of big. I'll sell them in the fall when the tourists come back to look at the aspen. This is kind of, take it up a little higher. This is a close-up of one of the aspen paintings I'm working on. We just threw this together, I guess, last night, so this is kind of disjointed. What else we got? Yeah, this is a little higher. I found a place where there was this beautiful, I don't even know what kind of flowers they are, but these red and violet flowers at the base of these aspen. I thought, boy, I got to paint that. So that's what I've been working on for the past couple of weeks. You're familiar with this one? Yeah. You know, I didn't until I saw the original again. I didn't realize what a nice painting it was because in the poster it's kind of reduced down and the colors aren't quite as good as the original painting, and I'm so glad, Donna, that you got that painting and I got to see it again. Raise it up a little bit. I married this couple after I did this painting. They were kind of going together and kind of not going together. He now is a judge. He was an attorney for years and years and years. Now he's kind of a retired judge. And I painted, I did the initial sketch in the park. They went to my church. I did the initial sketch in the parking lot of our church. And there was one of these little curves that separated the grass from the parking lot. And so I had them step on the curve so I could kind of see how it would look and their balance and stuff like that. And she didn't have a picnic basket, but she had a purse, so that's what we did. You know, life is funny. I baptized their son. And I buried their son several years later. Buried two of my own children. Buried one of my grandchildren. We never know what life will dish out. And it makes it all the more important to live life as well and as lovingly as we can. These are still good friends of mine.
Yeah.
This is that sign in gold that I did for that fellow. Ended up running his restaurant for him. This was next to it. It says a mercantile store. It sold all kinds of stuff. To put it down a little bit, I started a series of paintings, and they sold out pretty well up in Central City, of some old kind of grandpa gangster with a cute little girl. I put myself in the background there, me with the glasses, but did a whole series of him doing different things, and they sold out really well. This is a picture of the frame that my wife Diane had. That's when I wasn't doing church business, and that's when everything was okay. And of course the Chamber of Commerce sign. Got that one again. Oh, take it up. This I think that's the gold leaf sign I did on the front window. The gold leaf is really hard to do. 23 karat gold. That was in Cherokee, but take it up a little bit. Unless it's not there. Well, I guess it's not there. This was. Well, I know the names of. I never knew the names of the streets here in town, but that was Old Zix Market, and then I painted those signs, and that's when I first came here.
That's the sagebrush.
Sagebrush, okay, yeah.
There's the corner cupboard.
Yeah, okay.
Where Talakwa Square is now.
Okay. Oh yeah. The next one. I know where this next one is, I think. Okay. I don't know if you remember this fire. Take it up a little higher so you can read it. That was the old fire truck. And that was in the parade. We used to have a lot of fun parties here. That was Nile.
Modern.
Thank you. And that was me there. There's the grocery store in the background. Another big parade. Where's Dougal? Go down. Keep going. The next one. That's Dougal. Dougal's Mountain
There it is. The Mountain Inn.
Yeah, that's right. Now, some of you came after all these characters, so sorry you didn't get to meet them if that's the case. I did a lot of real estate signs. This is a sandblasted sign I put up. I think that's in Granby. In fact, I know it is. It was.
It was.
Okay. Yeah, I did the logo. I made the Silver Creek logo for them, designed it, and then built their sign. Had stonemasons come in and do the stonework. I don't know if that's still there or not. Cut out letters, pasted on the side of the building.
That became.
There's a sandblasted sign on the side right there.
That was Mountain Models.
I did a lot of restaurant signs because I learned a lot about restaurants that way. Good eating. Grand B again.
John Pritchard worked there for a while.
Okay. Yeah, I was the one that, I came up with that logo. I think it's still there. That was George Pierce's thing. That was in one of my church offices. That was the presiding bishop of the Episcopal Church. Take it up a little bit more. And that was in one of my church offices there. Oh, this is nice. The last church I served, I've been there 17 years. I went to a church, the bishop called and said, we can't pay any money. Been there, done that. But there's a church that we think is going to close down. Is there any chance you can? I said, yeah, sure. I ended up being there for 17 years and built it up. And we built up a wonderful, sizable Spanish congregation. And then we had another congregation of Sudanese. And so it was just a wonderful thing to happen. And I don't know if you can move it over a little bit. Sarah was an Episcopal priest when I met her, when I was working at St. John's Cathedral. And somehow, by the grace of God, we got back together again. And we've been married now for almost 26 years. And that one worked because we didn't have any religious differences whatsoever. In fact, we worked together on several different churches. First at St. John's Cathedral, where we now still attend. But I have to say, the two things that made any difference in my life that really mattered much was the Lord and my wife Sarah. You know, I probably would still be working in the mine if things hadn't happened. My father, I mentioned my father. I was in seminary. I got a phone call from my mom. It was right before Christmas. I was in Kentucky, she was in Golden. And she said, George, your daddy died today. He was 51, died at the mine. And I think, God, I'm so... And the mine is closed down. I've been there since. They closed it all down. It's all the guys that used to work there, those that are still alive, don't have jobs anymore. It was in Wyoming. I thank God that my life has taken so many different turns. And I'm so happy that I get to paint. I get to go to my studio every day. I'm out of my wife's hair. Then I change back into clothes that aren't covered with paint and I go home. And I'm just so thankful. And this thing was all put together real quick because folks said, Don said, can you come on up and talk? I said, about what? I don't know, about you and about your painting. I don't know what. I spent some time down in the Southwest too. Santa Fe especially, but other places too. And so I still sell a lot of paintings, Southwest paintings. That was my interpretation of St. Peter. Take it up just a little higher. Where it says, Jesus told him, when Simon Peter was a young man, he said, when you're an old man, they'll tie up your hands and take you where you don't want to go, indicating what manner of death he was going to have. But, so I painted Peter as it's a watercolor, as an old man. That was in the church where I was. That was an Indian girl. She was on the reservation. She didn't have those clothes, but she was on the place in Canada. She was such a beautiful, sweet girl, and I guess she still do well. She's got a job in a casino in Alberta now. I painted a lot of icons. Not many people paint anymore because you don't paint with oil or watercolor. The way they did it, on a board that's aged, so it won't wilt, warp, and then a mixture of marble dust and some other things. And then it's painted stroke by stroke by stroke by stroke by stroke by stroke. First one color, then another color. This was the family album of the early church. They didn't have photographs, but people wanted to know, well, what did Jesus look like? What did St. Paul look like? What did Mary look like? Nobody knew, and so our family album, the church's family album, was in these old kinds of icons. And then the background would always be 23, 22 karat gold. I discovered that people weren't making it anymore. This was about 40 years ago. And so I started making them just to try to preserve a dying art form. And I ended up teaching iconography in many different places, including Gethsemane, which was the abbey where, well, gosh, a lot of famous people were there, including Thomas Merton, who I got to meet. Thomas Merton was at the Abbey of Gethsemane in Kentucky, outside of Bardstown, Kentucky, where I taught some of their monks how to paint icons. And they're just very, very special family photo of the faith. This icon that I did under glass, I made it look old, because that's how many of them look, and that hangs in our house now. That was a wedding gift to my wife Sarah from me.
That's it. That's it.
Good. There's no rhyme or reason or continuity.